and welcome to another episode of Seeds of Music, the web's #1 resource for independent artists. I'm your host, Kyle Williams, and this is our weekly web show where I bring on music industry professionals and successful independent artists to talk about the ways to build a bigger, stronger fan base and earn more income from music. Now, real quick, we have an iTunes podcast if you like just listening to the audio only, because this is a web show, so it's video-based, but I put out an audio-only version podcast. Just head over to iTunes and punch in Seeds of Music, Rise Above the Noise. You'll search it and then hit subscribe, and you'll get all the latest episodes downloaded straight to your mobile device. And please leave a rating and a review. Tell us what you think of the show. Leave it a 5 stars, 4 stars, 3, 2, 1. Just whatever you think. Honestly, just leave something. This will help improve our ranking in iTunes, which will help more people discover the show, and I'll also be able to use that to get bigger and better guests on for the interviews. So also, I'll give you a shout out if you leave a review. I'll read it out in the next episode just to say thanks for doing that. Now, on today, we have Brett Ryan Stewart, and he is an independent artist / working professional musician making a full-time living from music in Nashville. And we're going to talk about how he wears multiple hats and still gets things done. Because not only is he a performing artist, but he's a songwriter too, and also a producer. So we're going from the creative writing part to the performing part to the business to the marketing into the audio engineer. So it's a lot of hats to wear, but yet he still manages to get everything done. So this episode is going to be a lot about time management for musicians. I know a lot of you either you might be doing it full time, or most of you might not be, and you have to work a day job and you have only limited time and energy to devote to your true passion. So I definitely encourage you to listen to this interview and get some practical tips as well as inspiration from it. So let's jump right in. All right, Brett, thanks for coming on to the Seeds of Music web show. It's great to have you on here. Another great artist from Nashville. I know we not too long ago. Actually, I haven't. I don't know. Actually, yeah, no. Your interview is probably going to come out after hers. Now that I think about it, but before we interviewed Danica Holmes, she was another artist from the Nashville area. So it's really cool to have you guys, that are in the hub of it, come on the show, because you're really knee deep in everything music and music industry. And my brother used to live out there, so I haven't been to Nashville many times. It's been a long time, mostly to visit my brother. But how is it? I mean, have you lived in other cities, or is Nashville just the bee's knees when it comes to music?
Well, I have lived a couple other places. I grew up in the Delaware, Philadelphia area, so I do love that city. I started in that music scene. Mm-hmm. And at the time, it was kind of going through a downturn. Mm-hmm. There wasn't much support for the arts, so I moved here about 6 years ago or so. And in the 6 years that I've been here in Nashville, you may hear about it where you're at, but it's thriving right now. Just in the last couple of years, there's been major development, expansion. People are moving here from all over the place. And it's cool because the reason that's driving it is because it's not just country music anymore.
Yeah.
In fact, it's almost not country music anymore at all.
Well, it's just like music. I mean, like there's musical refugees like flocking in, trying to find a place that there's like more support for arts and art endeavors. And I know that you're no joke. You're a musician full time. You're a songwriter full time. You're doing this for a living. It's got to be really, really tough to be able to, do everything that you need to do. Because, do you feel like you have to wear multiple hats, or do you focus on one thing and forget everything else and it just works out?
There was the one dream long ago, I think when there was also more naivete of youth, thinking that, there was this big limelight one day to come that was going to make it, this was going to be it. I'm sure a lot of people share this sentiment, but you're going to be on stage every night, and everybody, you got people that are going to take care of everything else.
Yeah.
You're not going to have to worry about that. And yeah, there are exceptions to that rule. There still are people there,
Yeah.
and this town, harbors a lot of that.
Mm-hmm.
But the bigger picture, and something that took me a while to really, um, harness and be comfortable with, is the reality of it, which is there's not that there's the select few that might enjoy those luxuries, but if when you get knee deep in it, if you want to do this, you're probably going to have to wear a lot of hats, and that might be anything. I mean, I've worked countless day jobs that had nothing to do with music
Mm-hmm.
over the years to make
Yeah.
it, to just support it, because it was, I knew I wanted to do it, and I didn't want to put too much passion or heart into any other career, so I take these odd jobs and
Yeah. Absolutely.
pay my rent that way and stuff.
Yeah.
But even people at every tier of the business now still have to. Everybody's kind of recalibrating where their revenue stream is going to come.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And so, I mean, if you're a full-time artist, you have to kind of go down the list of opportunities, and it's not just going to come from one place like it
Yeah.
used to.
Yeah.
Or I should say, it used to come from many places, but it would be funneled through a record label, which
Yeah.
of course, those are dissolving, and so now that responsibility is on us, the artists, and whatever we do, the writers. So yeah, it's an adjustment, and a lot of people probably fall by the wayside. I probably almost have several times.
Yeah. Yeah.
You
But
know,
you didn't. But you didn't. You stuck it out, and now
yes,
that I'm sorry. Go ahead.
yeah, well, that's what it takes. I mean, you just have to, not to sound cliche, but you have to believe in yourself and go through the muck that there will be, and then through, on the other side of that, there will be some great opportunity that you
Yeah.
maybe didn't foresee.
But it seems like you also have to have like realistic viewpoint or perspective of the
Yeah,
musical landscape of the music industry, because like you can't go you're gonna have much less chances to actually make it a career, where that's all you do every day, you wake up and do it, if you're going through it with this kind of naivete about what the reality of the music industry is. You may hit something there, but like you said, it's like you crawl through all the muck, but it's a learning experience, and I think there's a lot of power in being able to see things for how they are, and the fact that you do have a lot more responsibility as the artist to make things happen. So I mean, do you consider I know a lot of musicians might not sit down and actually think about time management, but do you consider that an important part of success in today's music industry for the artists themselves?
yeah, I think that's irrefutable in any industry, really. But I
Mm-hmm.
mean, yeah, that kind of also relates to the old pipe dream of, musicians by nature tend to not have that quality.
Mm-hmm.
That's not one of our strong suits, is to manage time well.
Manage time well. I don't.
Going to bed at 4 a.m. makes it very difficult to do that, but
Yeah.
it's not, but yeah, it's not only is it necessary, but it's actually a pretty easy thing to acquire, and I'm not a master of it, but I've certainly gotten a system that works for me, and I'm sure everybody's got their own way to do
So,
it.
so you didn't feel like you had a natural propensity for it in the first place, but it was something that you learned how to do. I mean, what, like, how exactly? I mean, you developed. How did you develop these systems? Did you just start reading books on time management, or did you take tips from other artists, or what was your method
Yeah,
there?
I think it's funny. I had read two books right at the same time. One was called, a lot of people have read, Getting Things Done, um, or that's not even what it's called. It's, uh, yeah, I think it might be called Getting Things Done now.
I actually haven't read that one, but
It's a pretty, it's kind of a staple in
yeah,
self-organization and stuff, and it's
hmm
just a way to compartmentalize your time,
yeah,
and how to create these little filters, and um, almost like a tree of what's important, and how to kind of, sometimes you actually have to draw that out, and sometimes you have to just imagine it, but
yeah,
what's important, and put it into these little departments, and not try to take on everything at once, which I have always had
Yeah.
I've always been drawn to that, and I think anybody in the creative field probably is, because we're just, we're flooded with, uh, these things that draw us, whether it's writing a song or, um, wanting to, even songwriters have other interests other than just writing songs. They want to
Maybe they
create a
keep a
film or.
journal, or they keep journal, write screenplays or write poetry.
Sure.
I
And
mean,
you can't put the brakes on that. It's just going to come naturally. So you have to
yeah,
figure out. You have to. I mean, you would literally have to make choices, and that was, that was something I learned. Like, I had to make choices, and I had to be able to tell myself, well, today or this week, I am going to be making. I'm going to be writing 3 songs, and then just
okay,
other than day to day, life stuff of
yeah,
going to the grocery
eat,
store. I push
go to the
everything
bathroom, yeah.
bathroom. I try to make time for that.
Yeah, that's
Well,
good.
yeah,
You don't want to be in the middle of songwriting. You're like, oh,
yeah, it's better.
just had an accident. But no, that's great. That's. It's like you're talking about setting goals, and I know people who are talking set goals. You gotta set goals. Blah blah blah. And I know that can be a turnoff for some people, but when it comes down to it, it's true. You have to say.
Turn off for me for a large part of my life, and I just resisted to the point where it had me at my knees, and I realized that's all right. Maybe you had something right. You older people.
Oh yeah. We wanna resist. It's like there's something like I feel people who are, maybe this is just an assumption, but people who are creative, maybe they just resist conventional wisdom. But then again, if I read like books that are written by philosophers and incredible people have been dead for like 1,000 years, that some of that wisdom can be seen as conventional, but it's been filtered throughout history and just basically said over and over, but with different dialects, just different ways of saying it. Like you could say, biggest piece of advice for any creative person is develop the ability to focus. And there's probably like a 2,000-year-old like Chinese mentor who said that in some way, and then there's probably a 19th century poet who said the same thing. So there are these conventional wisdoms about you have to be able to actually set out to achieve something, which is setting a goal, and you have to stick through with it and complete it, and not like give yourself any leeway, because that really pushes yourself.
Well, I'll tell you, there's more torment in not completing something than uh, neglecting this whatever other thing might enter your mind.
Oh yeah, the distractions.
Yeah, the distractions. Even if it's something else creative, you're going to find yourself, if you step away from whatever it is that that does have your focus, and you go chase this. There's going to be more inner turmoil about this thing that you abandoned and probably can't get back to,
because you lost the momentum.
You lost it.
Yeah.
Than there is to just push that other thing out of your mind long enough until it just goes away.
Yeah. I think
part of the choice.
Absolutely, and that's part of time management right there, is sticking something through to its fruition, even if I think it's important, even if you lose interest in it. Like, this is just me personally, but if you set out to do something and it's not like a 3-year long project, and you get like a year in and you're like, oh, this is a horrible idea, then by all means drop it. But you have to be able to know when you're just like, you have creative ADD and you need to just have focus, rather than, this is something I absolutely am not connected to at all whatsoever. I think I can really stifle music, just creation of anything, just creativity in general. So what do you think are the most difficult things that you're juggling with as an independent artist, with no label helping you out, and you don't have like a staff of, I'm assuming you don't have a staff of like 4 or 5 people who are handling all this other stuff on the side?
Well, in different departments of my life, I do, because I think I might have mentioned to you this before we started that one of my vocations, one of the hats I wear is a recording engineer, producer role, and so I'm actually here at our studio in Franklin, Tennessee, right outside of Nashville, and that
Okay.
takes up a big this part takes up a big part of my time. But I'm a partner with three other people, and that works like a small production company.
Mm-hmm.
We or small label even, where we all have our roles. We have a marketing department, and then we have interns that help us out with that.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, in that area, there's a model in place, and it's working. Um, with with my own career as an artist, and when I put out records, um, you know, each time you kind of recruit people, inadvertently often, where they find your music and they ask, if they have some penchant for marketing or something that they want to put to use, then they can help you in that. But yeah, there's no hired guns per se, other than
Yeah.
the occasion, you might hire a publicist or something. But
Yeah.
no, I mean, it's it it's an incredible amount of work, and it's and you have to balance the creative side with the business side in a way that, more often than not, the creative side is a very small part of it. It's actually probably the smallest percentage of your time will be spent on that.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't seem that way when you're in the studio making an album. It seems like, when is this thing going to be done? But then the work hasn't even started,
Yeah.
and figuring that part out has been a challenge. And I wouldn't say that I've by any means mastered it. I think we're all evolving and learning that as the music business has changed in the last decade. So it's kind of, sometimes you call in friends, but more often than not, it's you. I mean, this is why I don't sleep very well.
Oh
And
yeah.
that's okay, because this is, it everything grows legs if you continue to push and
Keeping that momentum.
yeah, and keeping your spirit, because if nobody wants to be part of something that doesn't already have some steam in it.
Yeah. Like
If
if you
you
don't show enthusiasm, they're not going to want to be a part of it.
nobody else is going to care.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, if some people have the luxury of maybe having uh, come from a music business family. There's a lot of
Yeah.
that here in Nashville.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Not me.
uh, yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, I come from a family of musicians and artists, but not music business.
I have one
So
musician in my family, an older brother. And that's it.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Is he was the brother that was here in Nashville?
Yeah, that was him. Yeah,
Oh,
he was a Nashville guitarist, but yeah. Other than that, yeah, no. There's various musical people, but I have to start going out to extended family to find them. But no one that I spent time with growing up.
yeah.
So yeah, definitely. That would be the idea of a musical family is fascinating to me.
It would be quite a gift, wouldn't it?
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Well, my family's a gift now, but yes, I
Of
totally.
course.
If
Yeah,
they totally, yeah, it goes without saying. Yes, Kyle, your family doesn't suck because they don't play musical instruments. No, we get it.
you might edit that part out of the whole interview.
No, I'm keeping it. This is Seeds of Music, the real show for music advice. Anyways, so do you feel like hands down the hardest thing to juggle is that business and the creativity, or is it just like your specific role, like songwriter and producer? I mean, what's most difficult?
The role I think that I fit, the role that's most comfortable, I would say, is my role kind of behind the glass as the engineer, the producer. I'm not, by my nature, I'm not, a showman.
Oh yeah,
I can put on a show, but it's, I guess I'm too introverted for that,
okay,
and I've been doing it, and I can turn that switch.
mm-hmm.
But the comfortable part of me likes to kind of be, behind the scenes, pulling the strings,
Yeah,
that's kind of what I've been settling into over the last year, working here at the studio,
yeah,
working with other people, and it gives you a perspective of a view from 30,000 feet, where you can
yeah,
look from the outside and modify and even offer a considerable amount of creative input without having to be the face of that.
Yeah.
And that's just, I mean, that's just a thing that some people, it does come naturally to them, and doesn't. And I,
different strokes for different folks.
Yeah, and it's exactly.
I can't believe I just said that, by the way. That was the lamest thing. It's true though. So you just you understand yourself enough that you can say, well, I'm like this, and this is what I enjoy, so that's what I gravitate towards more. But at the same time, you still can do the other side. You still can do the extroverted performance, and I think that's definitely part of successful people is they can do things that they're not necessarily comfortable with,
Right.
But do you have I'm going to throw this question out there. I've been wanting to ask more and more artists about this because it's kind of like it's more like a high performer question than anything, because I'm not assuming everybody's a morning person. But do you have a morning routine that gets you pumped for the day?
Yeah, well, let's call it an afternoon routine because I'm a night owl.
The time that you wake up routine?
Yeah, for me, it's coffee first and foremost. And then this has been new to me within the last 2 or 3 years. It's exercise, like pretty,
Coffee, then exercise?
Yeah, and then more coffee.
Oh, and then more coffee? You don't eat breakfast or anything? No food?
Oh, yeah. I guess.
Walk me step by step. I'm just fascinated. I'm fascinated by like how people because everybody's got like little different routines that might like work for them. So I'm just like curious. You just wake up, you go get the cup of coffee, and then you start like bench pressing, or
almost. I mean, that's essentially I get up. It takes me a good hour to just come into focus. So I'll drink coffee and maybe watch the news or see what's on social media or something.
Yeah,
kind of brings me to, and then I'm a big juicer. I like to juice, especially in the summertime.
Not steroid juice.
Oh yeah,
yeah, not that kind of juice. Yeah,
that's how I do that right before I go to the gym.
Yeah, too, man. Yeah, for sure. Before I play guitar, I'm just like,
yeah, just in the one arm.
Just this one arm, so you flex it while you're or you're playing like a E major, you're like
I figured out all the chords that makes the most flex.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm sure there's somewhere in the world there's somebody out there.
Dude, you never saw the bro dude like who would walk across college campus like with the guitar outside the case and he's like has it over his shoulder or some shit. I hated that, man.
He knows how to play a G chord, but he looks good.
Yeah, it's just like oh man, it used to get under my skin just like because I was like, man, put it in a friggin' case, bro. If you're gonna carry it somewhere. But he just had it slung over his shoulder like he was just some like samurai or something. But I don't know. That's my jadedness about that. So coffee, news, social media. Then you're starting to come to, and then you hit up the exercise.
Yeah, and I try to do that almost 5 days a week. It's an important for me. It's an important part of the day. I mean, I just have to do it to get in. So I'm not one of those people that can get up and just immediately start creating.
Yeah.
Like I can't do that unless I have another part of my ritual.
Yeah.
I go work out or just go for a long walk when the weather's nice.
Yeah.
And then I might read a little bit, just enough to get my brain going, and then it depends on what I've got slate for that day. I should say the exception to that rule is when I have to run a recording session and it starts at 10 a.m. then it's just coffee and right to the studio.
Gotcha.
But that's okay. So it's a good 30-minute drive from my home to the studio, so that gives me enough time. But even then, I always find that later in the day is when I start to really come to. But so then and I guess I should have mentioned somewhere in there, with drinking coffee, I'm usually the night before I'll make a list of to-dos.
Really? Why the night before instead of the day of?
Because if I don't, first of all, I think better at night, so I can kind of plan it out.
True.
And then also, if I don't wake up with that, I will either wake up way too late because I won't have that in my mind
Oh
already.
yeah, you won't have that focus.
Yeah, or I'll just wake up and it'll be all blurry and I'll forget everything. I mean, I
Yeah,
will literally forget everything. It's that
yeah,
bad. So I need it to like, I need the first thing I see in the morning after I get up out of bed is a list, at least of one thing that,
just
if it's
one.
if it's just one thing, I'll just look at one thing.
Oh yeah, gotcha.
That starts getting me going,
Yeah,
and if even if it's something boring, just like I have to call the insurance company, which is often. So
yeah,
so boring life stuff, I'll do that and usually get that out of the way. I usually like to get that out of the way before I settle into any kind of musical stuff, just because I don't want that on my mind while I'm in the
yeah,
zone.
yeah,
Uh,
gotcha.
so I'll do that and then gym and then all that and then start working. And then I try to limit my time of. I never did this years ago, but limiting, blocking out my time, like say it's 3 or 4 hours to do creative stuff,
Yeah,
and then and actually having to commit to that because there is the point of diminishing return,
yeah.
and I
Where
think
your mind
everybody.
starts to wander, and then you're just like,
Plus,
and
yeah, I
then
mean,
time's a wasting. You haven't done
you're just,
anything.
and
Yeah,
that's comes the part you were talking about, getting sick of it and whatever it is you're working on. So I try not to do that.
yeah,
And that's been something I've had to practice because sometimes when you're in the zone, it's really hard to give up. And I'm not saying you have to say, all right, it's 4 o'clock, stop,
yeah.
and
No
then
matter what.
the whole thing, and then you lose all the magic.
Yeah,
It's not that, try to stick within those guidelines. I mean,
yeah,
like if you here in Nashville, co-writing is a big thing, which I don't do a ton of, but
yeah,
I've got a ton of friends that do that, and it's like it's a 3 hour block, so I'm going to write this day from this time to this time with this person, and then if I have another write, it'll be another 3 hours somewhere else, and that works. I think that actually works really well.
I'd love to
Um,
sit down with someone and do some songwriting because I've never actually done that before. I feel like it would help me out a lot.
Good exercise. It's not something I personally like to do a ton. It's something that gives you another perspective, and then you can take that into your own lab and you feed off of that, and that's good.
No,
Um,
tinker with it. Yeah, for sure. So
Country, that's a big thing.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I figure with like when you can sit down with an acoustic and you can write, in that fashion, which is like a very immediate. It's like boom, here's the chords, here's the melody, or I'll sing the melody. You write the song structure. It's relatively straightforward to sit down and co-write in that fashion rather than if you're an EDM artist or doing any kind of digital production and you have like a writing process that you got the Moog here
Yeah,
and and your guitar is over here and you just have to you're in their lab and that's how you write and no one else can make sense of your shit 'cause so no which is why I'm always impressed when I see collaborations between artists that kind of have that production workflow. Mainly when Beck collaborates with other people, when he shows up in songs. Um, yeah. So, but my last question here: how does marketing factor into your career
with my day or
in terms of like how do you handle the marketing end of your career, like getting not just like building the fans for your music, but just getting more exposure for it. How I mean is what's your approach in general for that? Do you have like okay, let me put it. I'm doing a horrible job framing this question. So within managing your time, you have times that you have to create, and then times that you have to do the business stuff, the marketing, the promotion, yada 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 yada. Like, do you mix creative work within the same month or week with marketing work? Is it a constant process, or you say, okay, I'm gonna take a break from writing any songs, and this month I'm gonna focus on promoting,
I got
or you know what I mean?
yeah, you do kind of have to stagger them in the new climate. You're probably going to be doing juggling a lot of things at once, but it is
Okay.
important to center in on one. So, you know, for me, like it was just if you take this example, if you really either release an album you record that album, and then while you're recording it, you're thinking, and you're maybe, pulling some resources and making some calls and playing them rough, mixes and stuff and getting interest.
Yeah.
You're making phone calls during, but your main focus is get the record done.
Yeah.
And then you're promoting that, and you're of course you're going to have a lot of creative moments. So you're going to be writing while you're, after you've recorded that album, you're probably still going to be writing. But it is important at that point to make your, steer your compass towards, let people hear this record, and depending on what capacity you do that, if you have a big label, they're probably going to put you on the road for 2 years to promote that record. But as an independent artist, you have more luxury and more flexibility with how much time you actually put into that.
Yeah.
Some people, like myself, do mainly online promotion.
Mm-hmm.
So really, you could do that for 3 months strong, and then kind of, and then if you're ready to move on, and if not, continue to promote it. And that would go, and it's not just with an album, it could be with an EP or even just a single. And sometimes singles are the best way these days, where you just have one song, you promote it for a month or two, and then give them something else.
Yeah.
And that, since the idea of like selling albums is almost moot, really, as far as a revenue stream now.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I think there's definitely still significant, but that's another interview, another conversation. But yeah, it's like there is less, it's harder, but it's still possible. There's less opportunities, less artists doing it. But for sure, I totally get what you're saying.
It's not a revenue stream at all. It's just that it's not going to be your main.
Oh yeah. You're not going to make your entire living just from, because you got to make an album, and that takes however long you're going to release how many albums every couple of years or every year or two. And it just, definitely. But it's just, it's definitely a part of that for sure.
It also depends on how much you want to, what do you expect to gain from any one project? You might just be looking at a record as a way to promote your live shows and get people out to your live shows.
Absolutely.
Or this is a big one right now. It's TV film. So maybe you're just writing one song and then trying to get it on TV film and do no live shows, and or you could do all of it. But
yeah.
It's probably important to really focus on one and try to make that happen as best you can. If you keep hitting a brick wall and it doesn't feel right, then try another path, more live shows or anything you can think of. But all that to say that how much time you want to commit to any one thing is really, if you're independent, you really kind of have the reins on that. And I don't know what the magic bullet is. I know
there is no magic bullet, but it seems like for you, from what you were talking about, you kind of work at things in parallel, where you have a project that you're working on, and then parallel to that, you're just doing little itty bitty micro bits of other work. Making going and making a couple lists of contacts while you're recording the album is not a huge endeavor, and you can kind of work that in and into that. So in nerdy sense of thinking, or a geek sense of thinking, I was thinking about hyperthreading.
I think if you
for processors, that's pretty much what you're doing. For hyperthreading, did we freeze up there?
No, that.
Oh, I think Skype's skipping. I'm actually. Oh man, I think I actually might edit that part out, because I was like, oh man, I made that joke, and then there was silence. I was like, oh god, I feel like you should have just played it up. You should have just frozen there for a second and not moved, and pretended to you didn't hear me. That would have been. I totally would have done that. That would have been hilarious.
Look at this.
What hyperthread? Loser. I'm done. Click. End call. Well, that's awesome, man. We're pretty much out of time here, man. But I'm just gonna wrap it up here, just to respect your time. I know you got a busy schedule. You got lots of hyper-threading tasks to do.
All the way.
Yeah, for real. So, yeah, Brett, I think I'm going to link up below, guys, a link to one of his free tracks, Needle and Spoon. Just punch in your email address and get that track for free. Get on his email list so you can stay updated with this awesome individual here. Also, he's got some great tracks that posted up on YouTube that I was watching. Awesome stuff. So, guys, just sign up for that, get your free track, and show your support for Brett. I just mixed your first name and your middle name and said Brian. That was horrible. And I realized when I mentioned Danica earlier, I said Danica, and I totally didn't mean to do that. So I apologize for saying her name wrong. But I trust you. I'm not drunk or anything right now. I just haven't eaten in like a couple hours, and I'm totally about to follow her. So, but I'll hang in there just enough to say thank you for coming on to the Seeds of Music web show, Brett. It's a pleasure having you.
Hey, man, it's been a great chance to chat, and glad it was good getting all this out of my brain.
Yeah, it's good releasing just like woosah, like all the everything that you have to think about, just putting it into words sometimes just really helps clarify, like, oh yeah, no, that is my system. Okay, well,
right.
Yeah, that's cool. I can change it or improve it this way, because now it's out there in the world, it's tangible. So I'll check you later, brother.
Yep.
And that wraps up this week's episode of Seeds of Music. On the show today, we had Brett Ryan Stewart, full-time independent artist, musician, producer, you name it. This guy wears a ton of hats, yet still gets all his shit done. It's awesome. I love running into people like this that kind of prove that despite what we think about artistic people being scatterbrained or this, that, and the other, and all these stereotypes, that there are people out there that manage to overcome that, or maybe aren't really like that in the first place. So make sure to check out we got him linked up below. Get your free track, get on his email newsletter, and stay in touch with this incredible artist. Next, sign up to the email newsletter, get updates on new interviews, vlog episodes, and articles, plus special newsletter content to help you build a bigger fan base and sell more music online and make that money. So, also, once again, subscribe to our podcast, leave a rating and review. Please leave that rating and review. I will love you forever. And also share this on social media if you liked it. Like it on Facebook, share it on Facebook, tweet it on Twitter, whatever. Anything you got, just pass it around so we can help more musicians by spreading this content. And lastly, comment on the video. I'd love to hear what your thoughts are on these interviews, and if you have any suggestions for improvement. Maybe you know someone who should be on the show, or maybe that person is you and you'd like to reach out to me. That's super easy. Just email me at kyle.seedsofmusic@gmail.com. I have an open door email policy, and at the most it takes me 2 days to get back to emails, but I answer every single email that comes through me. Sometimes that can be pretty tough, but I always make sure I do that. So remember, we are the future of music.